Olga of Kiev, the saint who burned cities. The messengers arrive by river. Their boats cut through the water like they belong there, oars dipping in steady rhythm, faces calm in the way men get when they think the danger is over. They come carrying words polished for persuasion, not weapons. This is diplomacy, they believe. This is the end of a problem. Inside Kiev, the air is still. Prince Igor is dead, torn apart while collecting tribute, his body broken for the crime of asking twice. His killers, the Babylonians, have decided on their next move quickly. They send envoys to his widow with a proposal so bold it borders on comedy. "Marry our prince," they say. "Join us. End this cleanly." They expect tears. They expect fear. They expect a woman unmoored. Instead, Olga of Kiev listens. She does not interrupt. She does not argue. She does not harden her face or raise her voice. She thanks them for their concern. She tells them their offer honors her greatly. Then she smiles. "Yes," she says. The men relax. Some of them grin. They mistake stillness for surrender. They have no idea they have just stepped into the first act of a plan already forming in her mind. They are escorted deeper into the city, promised ceremony and honor. They will never leave Kiev again. Olga was not raised for mercy. She was born into the northern world of rivers and forests, where winter could kill faster than any enemy, and survival depended on knowing when to speak and when to wait. This was a land of traders and warriors, of long journeys and sudden violence. People here learned early that power didn't announce itself, it endured. Her origins are quiet, almost deliberately vague. History doesn't record a dramatic childhood or divine signs. What it gives us instead is context, a world where women understood logistics, loyalty, and loss long before anyone called it leadership. Her marriage to Igor was political, necessary, practical. Love, if it existed at all, was irrelevant to the arrangement. Together they ruled a loose and volatile network of tribes, collecting tribute, enforcing authority, keeping rebellion just barely contained. Olga watched everything. She learned how tribute worked, not just who paid, but who resented it. She learned which men mistook patience for weakness. She learned how quickly power could evaporate when arrogance replaced caution. So when Igor died, she did not panic. She did not rush to avenge him with chaos or war cries. She understood something far more dangerous. The Babylonians thought the problem was finished. They thought killing a man ended his rule. They were wrong. Because Olga was not stepping into grief, she was stepping into authorship, and the first line of her response had already been written the moment she said yes. Igor's death leaves a vacuum. Not the kind that explodes immediately, but the kind that pulls quietly at everything around it. Kiev wakes the morning after his murder unsure of who is in charge, and more dangerously, unsure of who will dare to be. Olga does not rush to fill the silence. She lets it stretch. Her son, Sviatoslav, is too young to rule. That makes her regent by default, a temporary solution in the eyes of men who believe time will weaken her. They assume grief will make her pliable. They assume isolation will make her desperate. They assume wrong. Olga takes control the way winter does, without announcement. Tribute continues to be collected. Guards remain at their posts. The city functions. No one panics because no one is allowed to. But beyond Kiev's walls, the Babylonians are watching closely. They killed Igor because they believed him careless. They send messengers because they believe Olga replaceable. A woman, alone, ruling in the name of a child, this feels like an opportunity. They convince themselves that marriage will end the matter neatly. If she accepts, they gain legitimacy. If she refuses, they remove her. Either way, they win. So they send envoys by river, carrying a proposal dressed up as peace. Marry our prince, join us, end this quietly. Inside Kiev, Olga listens to the offer without interruption. She understands immediately what this is. Not diplomacy, not reconciliation. A test. They are measuring how afraid she is. She gives them the answer they least expect. "Yes," she says. Relief floods their faces. They mistake agreement for surrender. They congratulate themselves for solving a political problem with words instead of weapons. They do not notice how carefully Olga is watching them. They do not see the plan taking shape. Because while the Drevlians believe they are negotiating the future, Olga is deciding how many phases her response will require. The first envoys are treated with honor. Their boats are lifted from the river as if they are precious cargo. The people of Kiev gather to watch, murmuring, curious. The Drevlians stand proudly, enjoying the attention, convinced they are witnessing the beginning of alliance. Olga orders a trench dug in the city, wide, deep, carefully measured. The envoys assume this is ritual, a show of respect. They laugh quietly among themselves as their boats, still holding them, are carried forward and lowered into the pit. Confusion flickers across their faces. Then Olga steps to the edge. She looks down at them and speaks calmly, almost kindly. "Is this honor to your liking?" Before they can answer, earth begins to fall. It pours into the trench, filling space, filling mouths, filling lungs. Shouts turn to screams. Screams disappear into dirt. The city watches in stunned silence as the pit becomes a grave. Olga does not turn away. When the ground is finally leveled, she nods once and walks back into the city. The message is precise. This is not grief. This is not emotion. This is policy. And the Drevlians, still waiting for a reply, have just lost their first move. The Drevlians wait. Days pass, then weeks. No reply comes from Kiev. No outrage, no declaration of war. Just silence, heavy enough to feel intentional. They assume the envoys have been delayed. Rivers run slow. Politics take time. So they decide to send better men, nobler men, louder men, men who know how to speak to widows. They arrive with confidence sharpened by certainty. These are not messengers who expect trouble. These are men who expect compliance. Olga receives them warmly. She apologizes for the delay. She explains that the people of Kiev must be prepared properly before she travels to marry their prince. Before anything else, she says, they must rest from their long journey. She orders a bathhouse prepared in their honor. The men are pleased. Hospitality, at last. Steam rises from the building as they enter, laughing, unarmed, already congratulating themselves. The doors close behind them. Olga gives a single command. The bathhouse is sealed. Fire is set around the structure. Wood catches. Heat builds. Steam turns suffocating. Screams echo briefly, then stop. By morning, there is nothing left to hear. Only ash. Kiev remains quiet. And still, the Drevlians do not understand. They have lost 2 delegations and still believe this is miscommunication, a misunderstanding. They tell themselves no woman could possibly be this deliberate. No ruler would escalate without warning. So Olga provides one. She announces she will come to them, to honor her husband, to mourn properly, to make peace. The funeral feast is lavish. The Drevlians gather in great number, relieved, flattered, eager to put the tension behind them. They drink heavily. They toast Igor. They praise Olga for her restraint. They mistake her calm for reconciliation. She drinks with them. She watches them. And when the night grows heavy and bodies grow loose with wine, she gives the signal. Her soldiers move through the camp methodically. Not in a frenzy, not in rage. This is not a battle. It is an execution spread over hours. Thousands are killed where they sit, where they sleep, where they fall. Olga does not intervene. She does not need to. By dawn, the ground is soaked and silent. She stands among the dead and looks out over what remains of Drevlian leadership. This, too, is not the end, because cities still stand, and stories still travel. And Olga of Kiev has one final lesson to deliver, one that will ensure no one ever mistakes patience for weakness again. The Drevlian capital still stands, scarred, leaderless, nervous but intact. Its people watch the roads, waiting for the army that never comes. They expect fire and steel. They prepare for siege. They tell themselves that surely, the violence has peaked. Olga proves them wrong by offering mercy. She sends word that she is finished with bloodshed, that enough has been taken. All she asks now is tribute. Nothing heavy, nothing cruel. 3 birds from each household. Pigeons, sparrows, a gesture of submission small enough to feel like relief. The city exhales. Doors open. Children chase birds from rafters. Cages fill. The tribute is delivered eagerly, gratefully. This is what survival looks like, they think. Compliance rewarded with peace. Olga accepts the birds quietly. That night, her men tie small bundles to their legs. Cloth, sulfur, embers kept alive just long enough. When the birds are released, they do what birds always do. They go home. They slip into eaves and attics. They tuck themselves beneath roofs of straw and wood. And then the city ignites, from the inside out. Fire blooms everywhere at once. No walls to defend, no army to fight. Panic tears through streets as people realize the flames are not coming from outside. They are already inside every home. Olga does not need to enter the city. She watches from a distance as smoke rises and resistance collapses into ash. By morning, there is nothing left to govern. The Drevlians are finished, not defeated, erased. Revenge ends, order begins. Olga does not linger on the dead. She moves immediately to administration, reorganizing tribute, appointing officials, stabilizing routes. Where chaos once ruled, structure appears. Where rebellion once festered, silence follows. No tribe rises against her again. She governs efficiently, almost coldly, and it works. Kiev prospers. Trade stabilizes. Her authority becomes absolute, not because she demands loyalty, but because no one questions the cost of disobedience. Her son grows into a warrior, loud where she is quiet, famous where she is feared. He will conquer lands she never tried to. He will ignore her warnings about diplomacy and faith. Olga lets him. Her work is already done. Years later, she travels south to Constantinople. She is baptized into Christianity with imperial ceremony. History pauses, confused. The woman who buried men alive, who burned envoys, who incinerated a city with birds. A saint. The church remembers her conversion. The chronicles soften her edges. The blood recedes into footnotes. But the systems she built remain. Olga of Kiev dies peacefully. No apology offered, no regret recorded. Her revenge stands uncontested, her authority unquestioned. She did not rule with emotion, she ruled with sequence. And long after the fires cooled, everyone understood the lesson she left behind. Mercy is a privilege. Patience is a warning. And underestimating a woman in power can end a civilization. Years pass, and the fires become stories. Merchants tell them quietly along the rivers. Envoys repeat them with care. Kings listen and nod, pretending bravery while filing her name away under "Do not provoke." No one challenges Kiev. No one tests its borders. The memory of Olga does the work of an army. And then something stranger happens. She converts. In Constantinople, under gold domes and watchful eyes, Olga of Kiev accepts baptism. The ceremony is magnificent, imperial, respectful. She takes a Christian name. She learns the prayers. She listens to sermons about mercy, forgiveness, restraint. History stumbles here. Chroniclers don't know where to put the bodies once a halo appears. They soften their language. They shift emphasis. They speak of her wisdom, her foresight, her piety. They call her a bridge between pagan brutality and Christian order. They do not ask her to apologize. They do not record remorse. Because Olga never claims to have been wrong. Her faith is not repentance. It is strategy, another structure, another system that will outlast her. She understands what Christianity can become, a unifying force, a stabilizer, a way to bind lands together long after fear fades. Her son refuses conversion. He chooses conquest instead. Olga does not argue. She knows power wears many costumes, and faith does its work slowly. The church will later name her a saint. The kings remember something else entirely. Olga dies quietly. No coup, no dramatic reckoning, no final confession. She passes in her bed, surrounded by the order she built, leaving behind a state that functions because it learned, early and painfully, what happens when it doesn't. Her grandson, Vladimir the Great, will complete her work by converting all of Rus. He will be celebrated, remembered, praised as a founder. But it was Olga who made his world possible. She centralized power where chaos once lived. She ended rebellion so thoroughly it never reformed. She taught neighboring rulers that Kiev was not a place to test theories about female weakness. History tries to split her in two: the avenger, the saint. But Olga was never divided. She was consistent. She answered murder with policy, arrogance with procedure, underestimation with extinction. And when the fires were finished and the silence held, she turned to faith, not to erase what she had done, but to ensure no one ever undid it. Some women rule with love, some rule with fear. Olga of Kiev ruled with memory, and memory, once learned, is forever. History prefers its women tidy, repentant, softened, redeemed before the ink dries. So when it came time to remember Olga of Kiev, the record flinched. It lingered on her baptism, it polished her sainthood, it blurred the mechanics of what she actually did, because staring too long at the truth makes power uncomfortable. Olga never asked forgiveness for surviving. She never explained herself. She never apologized for effectiveness. Her revenge wasn't a tantrum, it was infrastructure. Each act followed the last with the logic of a blueprint. She didn't burn cities because she was angry. She burned them because rebellion needed to end, permanently. And it did. The world she left behind was quieter, more orderly, afraid in the way that keeps borders intact and ambitions in check. Faith arrived later, layered on top of what she had already secured, not as erasure, but as reinforcement. That's the part history struggles with. You can canonize her, you can moralize her, you can call her brutal or brilliant, but you cannot undo her work. Olga proved something rulers still refuse to learn. Mercy is not the opposite of violence. It's a decision you earn the right to make. She earned it. If this story unsettled you, good. Power isn't supposed to be comfortable, especially when it belongs to a woman who refuses to perform remorse for the audience. Subscribe as we continue to exhume the lives of the dark heroines, women who ruled without asking permission, who survived the trap of underestimation, and who left fingerprints history keeps trying to wipe away. Next time, we cross the channel into a royal marriage that turned into a coup. A queen who overthrew a king, ruled through scandal and intelligence, and earned a nickname history meant as an insult. Next time, Isabella of France, the she-wolf who took the throne. Stay dangerous, stay loud, and never let them hold the pen.